Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear students, to our class here. Today, we are going to talk about shim reduplication. Last time, if you remember, we talked about a variety of processes or operations. One of the most important of these operations was reduplication, and we talked about the partial as well as the complete reduplication. As a part of reduplication, we have the shim reduplication, which is a form of reduplication in which the original word or its first syllable, which is the base, is repeated with a copy of the replicant beginning with shim. Of course, many functions are maintained by using the shim operations to indicate irony, derision, skepticism with respect to comments about the discussed object. For example, here we have he is just a baby, right? He is just a baby. The response is babyish, maybe. Sorry, he is already 5 years old. So here, maybe here as a kind of shim, right? It's a kind of shim reduplication plus AB, which is taken from baby, right? So here the b is removed, right? And we have the whole part segment, say a bunch of segments here are remain, sorry. So the B is deleted. So actually here, maybe is a kind of, as we said, reduplication with the purpose of irony or skepticism. Here we have examples actually on examples on shim. Of course, these examples, of course, they depend entirely upon the intuition of the speaker, the phonotactics of the language, what is possible, what is impossible, what is prohibited, what is accepted. So based upon actually these features or criteria, we can use shim in the word. So for example, we have map, for example. If I use shim with map here, it is shmap, right? So here we move the sound meh. The sound meh deletes, right? Poster, for example, we say schmoster, right? The same, it is pa that deletes, right? But with, for example, for example, table also, we have schmable, the same, it is te deletes, right? With apple, it begins with a vowel, so we just add shim to be schmapple, right? With revenge, for example, I would say revenge, shmivenge, maybe shmivenge. Even here, we notice that ra is the sound r is deleted. So typically speaking, it is a part of the morphe, a part of the word. The initial part of the word is deleted. And it is called this shim is a part of reduplication. It is a part of reduplication. Now we move actually to further examples with the interaction of morphophonological changes, where we have internal modification, which is called ablaut. I think we mentioned this term before. And ablaut here, we have an idea about internal change in the word form. And typically when we say internal, this change hits or targets the vowel. So for example, we have song, we have sing, we have tooth, teeth, breath, breathe, and so on and so forth. So the change occurs here with the vowel. It's a kind of vocalic change, not consonantal. In Latin, the same actually example here in Latin, we have this internal change in terms of tag, which is cover, toga, which is a robe. Da give, Dunham gift, Pand way, Pundus wait, Reg rule, Rex king. So here the internal changes, dear students. We have E O, right? E O, right? We have da, A O, right? P, we have O, right? So actually we have a kind of vocalic changes. So here we have A becomes O. We have in take tog, da Dunham, A becomes O. We have in penned, for example, A becomes O. The same here, the same applies in this line, right? With rex actually the change hits the consonant, which is the consonant, which is the let's say the coda of the syllable. Another example, which is called umlaut, which is the replacement of the posterior vowels by corresponding anterior vowels, as in here, as in man, men, foot, feet, tooth, teeth, right? So also it is basically an internal change that let's say that targets with the internal uh, vowel system. In elision here, we talk about a variety of processes, and these processes talk about loss of vowels or consonants in different places. So that depends upon the let's say uh, the property of this elision depends on the position of this phenomenon. So for apocope, we have in one here, we have apocope, which is the loss of the unstressed vowels at the end of the word, like an, bello, ragazzo, an, bel ragazzo. So here we have the vowel u deletes. So syncope, the loss of one or more sounds or letters in the anterior position. So here of the word. Here we talk about sounds. Maybe sometimes these sounds are consonants or vowels. Okay, so here we have in Italian, we have sapere, no, sapro. We have here the deletion of the a, right? The deletion of a between the two consonants. So we have a vowel deletes, right? When it is between two consonants. Dovere, dovro, right? We have also the e deletes between two consonants. Aphysis, another process which is called aphysis, which is the gradual loss of a weak vowel at the beginning of the word, at the beginning. So the vowel here deletes when it is in the initial position of the word, when it is in the initial position of the word. So, for example, when we have je vous pas, I don't want, vous pas, right? So it is a whole deletion of the sound in the initial position. On the other hand, dear students, we have the so-called insertion. The so-called insertion, we insert, right, a sound in different or a variety of positions. So in Spanish, for example, we have carecer, to need, careze, right, carezo, I need. So we have the insertion of the. Uh, tradoc, ser, traducer, or ser, whatever, right? We have we have the insertion of the. We notice, dear students, that here that the is deleted, right? So we have an insertion rule of the sound the. Prothesis is the addition, but this addition of the sound or a vowel in the initial position. So for scola, right? We insert e before scola, right? Typically, the major determinant for such a phenomenon like this is the phonotactics of the language itself. Epenthesis, on the other hand, it is the insertion of sounds, whether consonants or vowels. So here we have venre, vendre, right? We insert a sound. Metathesis, as we know, metathesis is a kind of the exchanging of the sounds due to a variety of reasons: fatigue, hunger, maybe brain damage, illness, dizziness, and so on and so forth. AB becomes a BA. So, for example, when we have the traditional example in English for ask, it becomes X, right? Uh, international, and here we have dadly, right? Dadly becomes dadly, right? And so on and so forth. So let's say in general, we notice that in most cases, one of the phonemes participating in the metathesis is liquid, uh, one sliding, or an H, right, or a. So typically, this is a kind of general remark marking the nature of metathesis. And now uh, we move to allomorphy, to the notion allomorphy and morphemes. As we know, dear students, that for the investigation of the phonemes, we said that the functional realization of a phoneme is an allophony or allophones, depending upon the position of this phoneme and at the psychological state or status of these phonemes. We can determine the underlying representation of each allophone from the language. The same mechanism applies to morphemes and allomorphs. We said that a morpheme is the minimal meaning bearing unit, right? And this morpheme doesn't change the meaning, but it is meaningful. On the other hand, the phoneme does change the meaning, but it is not meaningful. It is meaningless. So when we have, for example, the seh in cats, right? It is meaningful because it reflects an inflectional level, which is the plural. The function is a plurality. But, for example, when we talk about kiss, right, with the final seh, and seh here is a phoneme which is meaningless, but it does change the meaning. So if we replace seh in kiss with da, kid, right, so we have a total a change in meaning. So this is the overall impression about the this similarity between morphemes and morphemes and phonemes. The same here, the same representation of this kind of abstract notion of a morpheme is represented via allomorphy. So allomorphs can be looked at as a kind of a single morpheme, but with more than one phonological realization. We say phonological realization because we say that the major determinant of the notion allomorphy is the position of this morpheme. So it is the position has the driving factor, which is the phonemes, which is the phonological realization. Say, says, and so all depending upon the position where they occur. So the result of the history of the language is actually accounted for in terms of the notion allomorphy. So here, for the example, we say the final morphemes in the following words are pronounced differently. Why? Because they depend upon the position, the adjacency to other sounds. It is for phonemes. So, for example, we have prison, imprison, right? Body, embody, power, empower, bolden, embolden, bitter, embitter, well, panel, impanel. But when the sound is cha, it is not im cha with ma, right? It is in cha. in chain, right? In danger, in list, in train, in slave, in snare, in tangle, and in large. We notice that the variation of mn depends upon the following consonant. The following consonant. If the following consonant, let's say with here with the first example, the first consonant is bilabial, so this na becomes ma because the following sound is pa in prison, ba, and so on and so forth. But with the examples in three here, we notice that the following sound is not bilabial. So it is a ch, right? Da, la, ta, sa, ta, and la. So here in the other, in the elsewhere condition, it is na. So we can say that it is na, that becomes ma when it is followed by bilabial sound, right? This is why we say that it is a kind of a single morpheme with one more than phonological realization. So a morpheme may display allomorphy, similar to a phoneme may display allophony, right? So it has more than one form. So the alternation in consumption is one instant of this. So each of the realizations forms of the particular morpheme is called an allomorph, which is the actual morpheme that we produce. But with the abstract morpheme being stored in the lexicon with the properties or features, but when it comes to the spell out after phonology, it is the allomorph. So here, for example, we have sa, the sa, we have za, and is, right? So these morphemes, sorry, the sound, for example, sa, is realized as sa in a certain environment, as is in a certain environment, and as za in a certain environment, depending upon the phoneme that precedes them or the sound. So, for example, here with sa, bit, ta, pa, ka, voice the sounds, right? Either it is sa, but when it is ga, da, when it is ga, da, ba, this becomes za, right? Because it is preceded by voice sounds. When it ends with za, sa, and sha, right? Palatal sounds, affricates, and so on and so forth, sibilants, it becomes is. So here we notice that allomorphy is motivated by the phonology of the word form. So with suppletion, we talk about allomorphs of phonemes that are phonologically unrelated, like go, went, be, am, is, was, good, better, worse, bad, worse, one, first, something like this. These are let's call them idiosyncratic forms with idiosyncratic idiosyncratic forms that actually are motivated and are accounted for based upon maybe the history of this form. So the chronic accounts come into play sometimes to explain certain phenomena like suppletion because phonology cannot. Uh, when we talked about the motivation of allomorphy, we said that it is phonologically, it is the phonemes, the sounds that are adjacent to the morpheme trigger this change. But is that sufficient to say that it is phonologically motivated or conditioned? The answer is no, because we have more than one level of patterns that cause this type of change for the morphemes. Number one, as the traditional reason, which is the phonological condition, We say phonologically conditioned allomorphs. So the variants in the pronunciation of the plural depend only the phonological characteristics of the preceding sounds, with the example that we had, right? So it is sa, voiceless non-sibilants, cha after sibilants, za after and elsewhere. Another environment where allomorphy is clearly let's say, taken care of here is lexically conditioned environment where the variation is not determined by the preceding phonemes, rather by the individual words and cannot be predicted from other principles. So they cannot undergo any rule because they are unpredictable, and this change has taken place due to diachronic reasons. So we have oxen, but we do not have foxen. Oxen is correct, it is acceptable, it is used. But foxen is illegal and no one can use it or uses it. Sheep, the same, it is plural, singular, right, with no S. The other one, which is called it is called the morphologically conditioned allomorphy. The morphologically here conditioned or motivated is basically dependent upon the morpheme, neither the history nor the phoneme that determines the status of this allophone, but it is the preceding or the adjacent morpheme that determines the type or nature of this allomorph. So the choice of the allomorph, for example, in sieve, whether it is sieve or sept, is systematically determined by the morphemes added to them. So in the example here, when we have error, apple, right? That is sieve. When we have shin, tiv, shin, right? Tool, right? It is sept, right? It is so these two allomorphs are determined by whether they are followed by error, able, it is sieve, or elsewhere it is sept. So we can say that maybe we can have a rule. We can have a rule like the following. So we can say that it is sept, the morpheme sept, that becomes sieve only and only when it is followed by either er or able, right? So we do not say it is followed by a, right? Or a. No, it is followed by a whole morpheme. It is followed by a whole morpheme in the same word. So let's stop here and thank you for listening.